Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Since I've turned 50, I'm discovering that I now live in somewhat of a fantasy world of my own creation. Some of the things that I could do in my 40s and that looked appropriate for me to be doing in my 40s should no longer be a part of my reality today. But I live in a fantasy world, and I think they should still be part of my world. For example, this past summer, I went camping with the kids 2 times, and on one of the camping trips on the way back home, we stopped for a rest stop at a mall where we were going to eat in a food court, and there was these lovely decorative rocks out in front of it, spaced nicely apart, all flat. I think that they were supposed to be some version of a bench. And in my younger years, when I saw rocks laid out like this, I would jump on top of the rocks, and then I would jump from rock to rock, leaping over the chasm, making me feel great about myself as though I was some kind of superhero. And that just came over me. So me, now a 50-year-old, decided to jump on top of the rocks and try to leap from rock to rock. Okay, so I sprained my ankle because I didn't quite make one of the leaps. But that wasn't the biggest thing that happened. The biggest thing that happened is, as soon as I jumped on top of one of the rocks and began to sprint on top of the rock to jump to another one, all of the adults around the area stopped. They all froze and they all stared at me, looking as though they thought that they were going to have to reach for their phones and call 911. It was completely just this moment for me to realize that, maybe this kind of behavior doesn't really suit a 50-year-old. So after I had gotten up from spraining my ankle, I had the longest lecture I've ever heard from my daughters about the type of behavior that daddy in his 50s should no longer be partaking in. What about you? Have you noticed that you've had a fantasy about your own ability just to discover that you were mistaken? If you've got a funny story like mine, please pause the video and share it with whoever you're watching with. This video is based on my interpretation of Proverbs chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. In this passage, we learn something about a few fantasies that many of us may be holding on to. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years, and your life will be satisfying. Never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all that you do, and He will show you which path to take. Don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then you will fill your barns with grain, and your vats will overflow with good wine. Here's the direction I want to take in this video with this text to set us up for a really great conversation this Sunday. Challenging 4 self-centered fantasies. As I see it, there are 4 self-centered fantasies for all of us to take a look at in this text. I'm not going to do a deep dive here. I'm giving enough of my perspective to get us reflecting on ourselves and hopefully get us ready to talk about it this Sunday at 1:30 or 6 o'clock. And here's the good news. If we take to heart all of these instructions, warnings, readjustment of our fantasies, it comes with a benefit. Generally speaking, taking this stuff seriously will lead toward that good life that most of us at least are seeking. Here's the first fantasy that's being challenged. Something about callous independence. The text says, never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation. Loving God and loving others are the 2 laws of Jesus' followers. So it makes sense that loyalty and kindness should be staples of our interaction with others. Yet I wonder if this is always the case. I would think that it's not always the case. We live in a world where people generally think of themselves all the time. Generally speaking, those people that you're worried about offending, they're not thinking of you. They're just thinking of themselves. Living in a context where people are generally self-centered can wear even the best of us down. I think it may be easy for us to let go of loyalty, let go of kindness, simply because we get tired of being beat down day after day. Maybe you go out of your way to show kindness, and day after day you experience others disregarding you and not returning your kindness. If you're lacking in kindness and loyalty, I'm not going to be the one to point a finger at you to judge. I live in this world too. However, notice that kindness and loyalty, they're not passive, they're a choice. Like tying on a necktie around yourself to be displayed is a choice. If you want to be treated well, then you treat people well with kindness and loyalty. Is it always going to come back to you? Well, no, it's not. But if you don't treat people with kindness and loyalty, it will never come back to you, because the way that you treat others is your modeling of how you want them to treat you. It's not a promises principle. Generally speaking, the way you treat others is the way they'll treat you. Model to them the behavior you want to see from them. If you want others to treat you with kindness and loyalty, you got to model that to them, and they're going to reciprocate after they have received that deposit that you've made in them. So I wonder if this is something that we need to talk about on Sunday when we meet, so that we can be there for each other as encouragers, because life is tough. Interacting with people is tough. We interact with many people who are not aware of this principle. They just don't get it. They don't understand that other people experience them in a certain way, and that they do have some responsibility for the way that people treat them. Leaving people behind in the dust and living life as though no one else matters is going to become a problem for us if that's what we pursue. Callous independence, giving into burnout and isolation, generally points in the direction of a depressing and lonely life that's completely in despair. If we put enough time into callous independence, we start to run out of time. We miss our opportunity to show people the pathway to be our friends, and once that loneliness starts to set in, those people we could have invested in for friendship or community, they're gone. We've missed the opportunity. And not only will we be on our way to friendlessness, but we'll also have the experience of people treating us without respect and kindness, because we never made those kindness and trust deposits. We've never modeled that for people and taught them how we want them to treat us. Model to others the behavior you want to see from them. What you give is, generally speaking, what you can expect to receive. Following this is going to get you headed in the direction of living that good life that you want to be living. Here's a second fantasy this text is challenging in us. Something about self-determination. The text says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take." So it's easy for me to say that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. However, I wish I was. I wish I was smarter than everyone else around me, so that everyone looked up to me as the answers guy who could fix all of their problems, and they gave me all the accolades of greatness. But that's just not me, and that's just never going to happen. I'm surrounded by PhDs, by a chemist, by entrepreneurs, by professionals, by people who have been following Jesus far longer than me. I'm not the head of the class. I'm in the class, but I'm not the head of the class. I'm surrounded by greatness. More importantly, I'm nowhere near as smart as God. My best plans can't compete with might be, say, a good guess from God. There's just no comparison. Intellectual humility is super important. Having the humility about us to be influenced by others is so super important. Without that humility, we get tunnel vision and blinded by our own ideas. Actually, this idea of self-determination is one of the reasons why I see couples in marriage therapy. Often I see one of the marriage partners totally unwilling to be influenced by the other. They'll be spending money, making plans, saying things, and not being held accountable, and not being swayed by the ideas and the needs, the thoughts of their partner. So they land in couples therapy. And then it's expected that I'm going to be able to take this self-determinism and change it into humility. Well, guess what? Humility It's a choice. Well, unless we're humiliated and we don't like the experience of being humiliated, so to avoid that, make the choice. Humility is a choice. Allowing ourselves to be influenced by others is a choice. And it's a great choice if we want to be heading in the direction of that good life that we want to be living. Allow yourself to be influenced by others. Here's the third fantasy that's being challenged. Something around freedom to make your own moral rules. The text says, don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. Right and wrong is sometimes contextual. I will totally give you that. What's right for me to do as a therapist in a session is totally not right for me to do when I'm with my wife. If I start treating my wife as I treat my clients and use some kind of modality or tool on her, she picks up on it right away and gives me a look. And she says something like, I don't know exactly what you're doing, but I know what you're doing, and you need to stop. So for anyone who has any idea that right and wrong is kind of fluid, I can see that. There's such a thing as contextual rightness and wrongness. However, there are also some things that are unchangeable. The one unchangeable that this text seems to be pointing to is the unchangeableness of God. Following Jesus is the moral rule we want to get behind. Choosing to go our own way and make stuff up as we go along is a really bad choice, and we can't get away from it. If we want to live the good life, making up what right and wrong is based on our own understanding is going to land us into some problems. Trusting that God is smarter and also trusting that He's using His intelligence to benefit us, in my opinion, is the better option. It keeps us away from subjectivism, and subjectivism actually leads toward rigidity. However, following Jesus moves us toward love and compassion. Following my rules will benefit me. Following your rules will benefit you. However, following God's rules will benefit all of us. Maybe there's something here that we can talk about around the idea of us being impressed by our own wisdom. Perhaps you even have an illustration of how you're glad God saved you from a mess that your own understanding was about to put you in. I'd love to hear that when we meet on Zoom this Sunday. Here's the last thing. The fourth fantasy that this text is challenging. Something about total ownership. The text says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then He will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. Tithing is a neat subject. People who have fought me on it may say something like, it's not biblical. Or they'd say, it's part of the Old Testament law, but now we're in the New Testament. We're no longer under the law. But here's the thing. Okay, this is Proverbs. Proverbs didn't get dumb between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Wisdom didn't get dumb through the years. Wisdom doesn't somehow stop being wise. When we honor God with our finances, first, God receives our tithes. He receives that honor. Regardless of where you're putting your tithe, in a sense, it's actually Jesus receiving it because He's the one observing you honoring Him. That's a big deal because, there is kind of a promise here that God's going to bless you for that. It also has an effect on how you spend the rest of your money. Put God first in your finances, and you'll notice that it affects the way you spend the rest. Everything belongs to God. At the end of the day, we don't take anything with us. And then we discover just how much we also belong to God. So, in what way do you honor God with your finances, showing Him that you're prioritizing Him? Let's pause here. Hopefully this will give us enough to talk about on Sunday, knowing that I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I really love the iron sharpens iron thing that we've got going on. So looking forward to hearing what your contribution is. That's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you also please ask for the link? We meet 2 times on Sundays, 1:30 and also 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock is just for men, for community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time.